Are you someone like me and have been taking bribes throughout your life knowingly and unknowingly? Hey, what's up, family? Hope you're having a good day. If not, just know that the worst behind you because why? Because we manifest our reality with our thoughts and intentions. So always be mindful of the thoughts and intentions that you're holding because they directly impact the reality that you experience. So I opened things up kind of crazy there because I had something that came into my reality recently that has really got me to think about my current situation and even reflecting in the past as far as how I've been taking bribes and accepting bribes in my life that has caused me to not step into my full authentic self. So normally when you hear someone talking about bribes, you're thinking about financial, monetary, to where somebody wants somebody to do something that's against their morals, against their principles, and they say no, but then they ultimately change their mind because the person comes up and gives them something that makes it worthwhile to fold on their principles or on their morals. And I had something similar to that pop up. It's not anything financially related, but it was someone that I know was divinely orchestrated for me to cross paths, and they were meant to drop some seeds in my life that that was intended to get me to think about how I'm accepting bribes in my life that's taking me off of my path. So before I get started, it all happened one day in Walmart. So I was with my ex. We've been separated roughly about 2 years now and just kind of working on the dynamics, just seeing where we both are, because this version of myself that I am now, I've never been this way, or at least I haven't been this way since I was a very small child. Just like most of us, I would say, before things started getting layered on top of us, before to the point that one day we wake up and we look and we don't even recognize the person or the version of ourselves that we are, or we've become someone as a result of all those layers that have been stacked on top of us as we progress through life. And so because of the journey, I had a knowing that there are things that I should be doing, but I was stuck in my comfort zone. It wasn't uncomfortable enough for me to move, but it was comfortable enough for me to at least stay and put up with the circumstances that I was being presented with. And therein hold is the bribe. So before I get too deep into it, I really wanted to recount the story so that way you can see the perspective that I'm coming from and the interaction, because I'm positive, just like I had an interaction, you're having these interactions on a daily basis or a regular basis that spirit, the universe, the divine, Olodumare, however you want to personify the universe, spirit, God. I'm sure that the essence is trying to speak to you and trying to get you onto a path and see things in your life that need attention to. And I would say shining a spotlight on things so that way you can see it. And if it's like me, think of it like a snowball, to where the snowball is continuously going and going and going. So they'll start out with something small, spotlighting something. And then if you don't recognize that, see it for what it is, then that spotlight gets bigger and it gets more intense. And the recent interaction showed this to me. As I was saying, I was walking through Walmart with my ex, and we were just running some errands. And as I was walking down an aisle, there's a big main aisle that goes through Walmart. Anybody that's been there in the United States, when you first walk into the store, there's a big giant aisle that runs down the front of the store that separates like the cash registers from the regular department store. And in some places they have displays in the middle of this aisle that further divides it. Kind of like, you can think of like a highway, to where the displays are in the middle, like a median, that you have like that grass strip in the middle of a highway there. So as me and my ex were walking, I looked up and we were approaching the front of the store, and I saw this elderly couple come in. So it was a wife followed by her husband pushing a shopping cart. And so they were coming down the aisle that we were going down. So I was talking to my ex. I turned around and I looked and I saw him and we locked eyes, but it wasn't a casual locking of eyes that you have when you're, you just see someone in public and you just do a polite nod, hello, and then you kind of turn away or go about your business. It was, once I saw him, it was like a recognition, so to speak. Like, I didn't know him, I had never seen him, had never talked with him before, but it was like, for some reason, I like knew him somehow. And I could tell by the way that he was looking at me, he was having the same experience. So it's almost like if you've seen the movie The Matrix, Mr. Smith, whenever he sees Neo, whoever that person is in that moment, they automatically change into Mr. Smith in order to carry out some task or some duties that they have. So I would almost relate it as kind of like that. In that moment when we saw each other, unbeknownst to me in that moment, Spirit was going to be using this individual to deliver a message to me. And in hindsight now, looking back in that moment when we locked eyes on each other, it was like we recognized each other, and it wasn't that casual looking at each other and then saying, nodding the head and then turning away. It's like we kind of locked eyes and we kept that glance there for, longer than normal. So as we were walking up the aisle, like I was saying, he was pushing a cart with his wife in front. And so trying to be polite, I was wanting to give them the aisle. So I stepped through one of the displays with my ex behind me to go to the other side of the aisle so they could have this one aisle free to walk down. And unbeknownst to me, as I look up, who do I see crossing my path again? I see his wife crossing through the displays as well. And then shortly followed by her was him pushing the cart. And so as we got closer, I was like, okay, so I guess we were, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I guess we were just meant to cross paths, because here I am moving out the way to give him his aisle so that way him and his wife could make their way down unimpeded. So when he crossed my path, I was just like, okay. And he walked up to me as in passing, he was like, excuse me, you dropped something. And so I'm like, okay. So, I'm turning back, I'm looking down at the floor, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. What is it that he's seeing that I dropped? Did I drop my wallet? Did I drop my phone? Did I drop some money? So me and my ex were both kind of looking on the ground just to see what it is that he mentioned that we dropped. So shortly thereafter, he said, you dropped something. While we're both looking back, his follow-up reply was, you dropped your footsteps. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've dropped something and you're saying I dropped my footsteps. And so I just kind of let off a lighthearted smile, a laughter, as he kind of continued walking on. And then as he got maybe, I would say, 10, 20 feet away from us, continually following his wife, he turned around and he said, I'd vote for you. And I'm like, I'd vote for you? Like, does he think I'm somebody else, like a politician or something that he came across, he saw like an ad from, and he thinks that I'm said individual? So I'm just like, okay. But then it even got even weirder as he continued walking. He maybe took like another 5 or 6 steps further, and then he turned around and he said, it looks like you would take a bribe though. And I'm just like, okay, he told me I dropped something. And then when I look back, he says, you dropped your footsteps. Then as he continued to further walk away, he said, but I'd vote for you. And then as he took further steps, he said, because you look like someone that would take a bribe. And so I'm like, okay. And after that, he just continued walking, basically disappeared into the store with his wife. So, but that sat with me because in the moment it didn't make sense. And it wasn't until later that I'm big on AI. So, I got home, I typed up my experience and I put it into AI just to see what AI would say. And it came back saying that, well, it sounded like you had an experience with a trickster energy. Not a trickster energy in a bad way to where it was trying to trick me into learning a lesson. Well, I guess in essence you can say it wasn't in a bad way, but it was a trickster that was delivering words that didn't make sense, because in essence that spirit wanted me to sit with the thoughts, sit with those words to try and figure out what they meant. If something was expressed to me in that moment and it made perfect sense, how long would I sit with it? How long would I think about it? And not say, oh, okay, well, I understand what this person is saying. Thank you for that message. Let me go about my way. So once I read that, when AI said it, I was like, you know what, you're right, because this had happened like 5 or 6 hours later, but yet it was just still on my mind. It was just still on my mind, just trying to figure out, what is this person talking about? Like, why did they say that? What are they trying to show me? What are they trying to teach me? Because I am someone that realizes Spirit talks to us in our 3D reality. We just have to be in a place to where we can recognize and where we can receive, not so wrapped up in our own personal lives and our daily comings and goings that we miss the message. So after I typed it into AI and it gave some prompts and kind of thinking about things, it really got me to see and understand what he was talking about. At least now in my heart, I understand, and I've been doing some processing on it in my life to try and see what I can do to embody that message. So to unpack it, he was telling me I dropped something on the ground. I dropped something. So when I looked back, he said, your footsteps. So one of the things the AI was saying, especially if you start looking into what's the meaning of the word footsteps, especially throughout the passage of time. So in essence, it got me to realize that I've dropped the footsteps represents the path that I'm taking. These videos, the way that I help people, the way that I go about life, the example that I lead for various people, it's all related to the footsteps that I'm making in the sand. Just like you think of a father and a son, or father and a daughter, or parents, or anybody that's leading someone. Think about it like, say if it's deep snow, you're walking through the snow, you're the first person that's going. What do you leave behind you? You leave footsteps that whomever's coming behind you may step in to help find their way, just like you did. You found the path to navigate through the trees, through deeper snow, what have you. And this person that's coming up behind you is utilizing those footsteps to help themselves navigate their own path. Sometimes they may deviate, but at least they have those footsteps that they can see that you've left as a guidance for them. So in essence, I come to realize that when he said I dropped something and I dropped my footsteps, is that I'm not fully on my path, or I've gotten off my path. And then when he followed up with I'd vote for you, who do we vote for? We vote for basically, leaders, I would say, in essence, whether good, bad, or indifferent. When you're voting for something, you're voting for someone that you feel is a leader, class president, just politics in your local area. You're looking for someone to lead the community, whether it be like a mayor or someone. In essence, you're voting for someone that you see as a leader. So, in essence, with his messaging, he has told me that that I've dropped something, I've dropped my footsteps, but he'd vote for me. So in essence, he's giving me his vote of confidence, saying that he sees me as a leader, but a leader that is off their path, that has dropped their footsteps. And it was the third part that really smacked me between the eyes when he said, it looks like you would take a bribe. And I'm thinking, like, financial, what's going on? But then it really hit me that, why am I off my path? Or why would I be off my path? Would it be potentially because I've taken a bribe, say an emotional bribe? So it got me to think, when are the times that I feel like I'm on path? So like making these videos, as an example, relating and recounting lessons that I've learned in my life. I want to be consistent in making these videos, and I feel like this is my purpose and something that I'm meant to be doing, to relay these stories to others who may be going through these situations now, or Spirit is sending people in their paths to relay messages similar to what I received, but they're not picking it up in the moment. And it isn't until I come on here and I relay my story, and then all of a sudden you start thinking back into your past, or various interactions you've had with people, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this experience I had with so and so, it sounds like something that, Brandon is talking about. So let me go back, let me take my look at my journals or unpack it to see exactly what it is that that person was trying to show me in that moment. Because the way it resonates with me now is, what bribes am I taking in my life that's keeping me from making these videos? That's keeping me from stepping into my true, authentic self. As I mentioned, I was with my ex in that particular moment. When I'm with her and she's around me, I notice that I stop what I'm doing. Like this video here, I've been wanting to make it for about a week or so now, but I didn't because she was around me. So I put those things on hold. I put that on pause. So in essence, it wasn't a financial bribe that I was taking, but it was an emotional comfort bribe that I was taking. We had our experience together that she and I shared. I know that I've outgrown that dynamic, but it's comfortable. It's something that, despite our circumstances, we're familiar with each other. We can laugh, we joke, we have a good time. But when I go inside and I think about things, do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel motivated? Do I feel nourished? I would have to say no. Ultimately, it's not. So, in essence, that's a bribe that I'm taking in that moment that's taking me off my path. So, I definitely feel like that gentleman was an angel or somehow connected to spirit, or a vessel that spirit was using to communicate to me in my reality, showing me that I'm on my path, but I'm allowing these bribes to take me off path, to lose my momentum and to lose my motivation. And it got me to think, okay, so if I'm doing this in this instance, what other things in my life, what other bribes am I taking? So like with my job, my 9 to 5 that I do, we have gotten to a point to where we take jobs and we work jobs to pay our bills, but does it really fulfill us? Does it really motivate us? Does it really inspire us? And in my particular instance, I would say no. I have some good days and then I have some bad days to where it's like, I'm asking myself, like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't need to do this, but yet here again, it's comfortable. It's something that we've in essence been programmed to do, is work a job, work a 9 to 5 to pay our bills. But in the end of the day, when we sit there and we think about it, is it something that we really want to do? Is it something that we feel called to do, but we're not doing it because we feel this draw to this job because we have to pay bills? Who's to say that that's the only mechanism that we can utilize to pay our bills or to pay our way? If spirit wants us to take this path, we have to trust, and that's where it comes in, walking by faith, not by sight, that as long as we follow the signs, we trust ourselves and we follow our heart, that everything else that we feel like we're losing, we will gain that back plus more. And so it really just got me going through my life and just thinking about what areas am I taking bribes in that is causing me to feel this lack of emotional fulfillment. So like when I make these videos here, I enjoy doing this. I mean, I'm being vulnerable and recounting parts of my life that, like, even before I came on camera and stuff, when I was thinking about it, was making me very emotional in the moment, because one, it's a loving thing for spirit to come through and trying to guide us and direct us on our path. And it's really a somber thing, because sometimes, especially if you're like me and you've grown up just so different, people not accepting you and people not including you in so many different things, it's easy to feel like you don't fit in. I don't want to say the word worthless, but it's easy to feel like you're not special, you're not valuable. And it's in those moments when those things happen that it just shows you just how valuable you really are in that moment. I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it. So because there's just been so many different things in my life that has shown me how valuable I am, but because of, then again, those bribes that I keep taking, I acknowledge it, but I go back and I take those bribes because that's what's comfortable. That's all that I've known, and it's scary, stepping out of that comfort zone into being the person that that God wants you to be. And it's just showing me different things. So I went to a concert. So like this year has been about showing myself self-love, pouring back into my cup. So I love music. So one of the things is this year I made about going to concerts. When I was growing up and I was younger, very religious, parents wouldn't really let me go to concerts. So now that I'm older, I make my own money, I make my own choices, my own decisions. Last year, I wasn't in a financial situation to where I could do it because, like I said, when I broke up with my ex, I didn't have anything to my money, or anything to my money to my name really, because I was so busy pouring into her, giving her every single thing, that I was in essence living paycheck to paycheck. I made really great money, but I was pouring so many things into the relationship as well as emotionally spending money that when I broke up and I moved, I didn't have any money to myself, to my name really. So in essence, for the past 2 years, I've really just been surviving, trying to get my head back above water. And that to me is proof in point, because when I look around at all the things that I have now and where I am now, I know that the divine helped me get to this point. It helped me persevere. It helped bring in the abundance that allowed me to step into this reset, but I'm still holding on parts of the past. And so now it's looking at how do I step away from that energy and to fully commit to this path and stop taking these bribes that I've been taking that gives me these short-term levels of comfort. And that's where I'm at now, is just trying to learn how to navigate that dynamic, really identifying which areas in my life I'm taking bribes, sitting with it and asking myself, why am I taking these bribes? What about this is comfortable, even though it brings anxiety? It can sometimes bring depression because I know that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then with that recognition, what actions can I take in this moment to help me slowly stop? Well, I just want to say slowly, but basically, what actions can I take so that way I stop taking these bribes, so that way each and every day I'm living I'm living as the authentic version of myself. And that's the part where I'm really trying to reflect on right now. With my ex, as far as we're concerned, is that really the dynamic that I need it to be, or is it the dynamic that I'm hoping that it will eventually become? With my job, is it the dynamic that I need it to be, or am I holding on to the financial benefits that come along with it? Afraid to lose those when there's 10 times waiting for me if I step into this true purpose. And before I end this video, the last thing that was kind of like the final nail in the coffin is I'm a big Kid Cudi fan, so there's a lot of his music that has really related with me over the years. And so I went to 2 of his shows. So this last one I went this past weekend on the 29th. And so we were there. So I took my ex with me. So, she always hears me listen to Kid Cudi. So I went there twice. So I think it was like May 5th, I went to the Raleigh show by myself, and then Kid Cudi had a show in Bristol, Virginia. So I bought tickets for myself. She said she wanted to go, so I was like, all right. So I bought 2 tickets for us. So we got to the show, happened to get an upgrade to basically pretty much the front of the area there for only like $20. I think it was like $40 I paid to upgrade the seats so we could move a lot closer. So I didn't think anything of it in the moment, moved closer. We wound up sitting between these 2 these families on each side. Well, it was a family on our right side, but on my left side there was these two guys, these two young guys, and so at some point I noticed them having a conversation between each other, and they were looking at some people in the row in front of us, maybe about 3 or 4 seats down, and I noticed they had their phone out and they were looking up this Instagram profile of this particular person, and lo and behold, they saw someone that was sitting in the row in front of us that looked like someone that they followed on Instagram and that made YouTube videos. The person's individual, I hope they don't mind, but the person's individual, because it goes part of the story. So, but the individual's name, it turns out to be, I believe it's Rich Black Guy. And so he makes YouTube videos on there. And so I was just sitting there listening to them for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Like, is this him? Oh yeah, I think that's him. That's him. Do we go up and talk to him? So like they were just having like a meeting between the two of them. I could tell they were friends and stuff, maybe even brothers. And so eventually they mustered up the courage to stand up and go around and talk to the individual like, hey, such and such, are you, rich black guy or some rich black guy? Like I said, I've never seen the name, so I don't mean to butcher it. So I apologize if you ever see this. So, but in essence, they got the courage up, they walked up and they went to ask him, hey, are you such and such? And he was like, yes, that's me. And they were like, well, do you mind if we take pictures with you? And so he got up, he obliged them, started taking pictures with them, and then he sat down, and then they walked off. And then lo and behold, like a minute or two later, another group of guys, friends that came up, and they asked him the same thing. And he was like, yeah. So and lo and behold, there was about 3 or 4 different groups of people that came over to him and basically asked if could they take pictures with him. And, and he, of course, obliged them. And so it was just thinking to myself, like seeing him in that moment, sitting down, these people coming over and talking to him. He was with his friends trying to have a good time and stuff too, very respectful, and obliging them, taking pictures with him. And it just got me to think, because what's the chances that I would seats that I never even intended to sit in, but I got an opportunity to upgrade seats for like I said, $40. These seats, I think I paid like $300, I paid less than $400 for the seats that we were in, which were great seats. But for 40 extra bucks, we got upgraded to seats that were like, I would probably say $800-900, like I said, right behind the pit and stuff. And so I got to thinking, because I'm somebody that looks at signs, look at synchronicities, opportunities that present themselves in my life as not random occurrences, what's the chances that I would get an opportunity to upgrade my seats? And not only that, but those upgraded seats would put me sitting behind someone that's in their purpose, quote unquote, not taking bribes, and seeing the reaction from people who his videos have helped bring some laughter, some enjoyment, some entertainment into their life, seeing their reaction to them. So that way, Spirit saying, you see this individual here that's living their purpose, see all these individuals that's coming over and interacting with him and basically saying thank you for what you do. This is what I'm trying to set you up for, or this is what you're set up for, or this is what you're destined for if you stop taking these bribes. What do you think I said in that moment, or after these experiences are happening? I'm just like, all right, Spirit, I hear you. You've this is like the second or third thing that you've put into my life to show me, one, my path, my purpose, and what I'm destined for. So it's on me now. It's not on anybody else. It's on me now to decide if I'm going to keep taking these bribes that's taking me off my purpose, or am I going to step through that fear, like I've said and made videos before that I've done. Am I going to step through that fear to start living my purpose? If I'm being honest, I have no idea what that looks like. And that's part of the fear and why I haven't really done something like quit my job or, fully broken. Well, I would say me and my ex are broken up, but basically sever that connection and put that boundary up to where we don't talk to each other. Maybe remain as just friends, but we don't have that interaction where like we're talking, pretty much every day on the phone and whatnot. She comes and visits me and I go visit her. It's looking at those interactions and what is it showing me in that moment. So I know what I and at least when it comes to my ex and stuff, you know, I have a feeling I know what I need to do there. And it's really just looking at my life, and figuring out where I'm taking bribes and what steps can I take each and every day to get myself out of the lane where I'm taking these bribes that's keeping me out of my purpose, into stepping fully into the lane of my authentic self, where I'm no longer taking these emotional bribes that's keeping me distracted, keeping me, I would say, aware, but ignorant, I guess, to the moment. So, and that's the thing, to where I don't want a tower moment, and Spirit is showing me these things to try and get me to self-regulate, so to speak. But if it gets to a point that I'm not self-regulating, then Spirit's going to cause some disruptions in my life that takes away those comfort zones, to where I can no longer attach myself to those emotional bribes, to where now I'm forced to step into that authentic version of myself. And anybody that's been through what they call tower moments and stuff, you know, they're no fun in the moment. It's not something that you enjoy or that you want to go through. So that's where, in this particular state, now that I recognize it, if I go back to sleep and basically keep taking these bribes, I can't blame anybody else but myself whenever Spirit comes in and starts shaking shit up and forces me to step into that authentic version of myself. Because there have been people that have helped me. I've come in contact with, not physically come in contact with, but I've watched on YouTube, that have helped me through my journey and develop and become the person that I am now. So I wholeheartedly believe that part of me making these videos, or even the sole intent of me making these videos, are for people that are coming behind me in looking at these footsteps that I'm putting into the snow, I'm putting into the sand, or walking through the forest, the wilderness. The people that will see these footsteps that I'm leaving and use them as a way to help guide themselves through their own traumas, their own turmoils, you know, their own self-reflections and stuff. You know, that's the embodiment that I want to be, and I want to be an example, because I know that it wasn't easy for me, and I wish I had somebody like myself that could kind of talk to and just be there during those moments and stuff. So I'm thankful for Spirit having that older gentleman cross my path and deliver the message in the way that it was delivered, because like I said, I mean, it still sticks with me. And every time I go through experiences where I feel like I'm taking a bribe and not stepping into my full authentic self, that conversation plays back in my head. Sorry, I apologize. You know, definitely getting a little emotional and stuff. Like I said, just thinking about various things and whatnot. So, and it just shows you the level of emotional attachment that's with it, especially when you recognize things. And it's not even partly that, but too, it's just purging that energy, you know, purging that fear, thinking about it. What is it that's got me so fearful, even though I know there's nothing to be fearful of? And what's those things? What's going on? What happened early in my life that's caused me to hold on to things that I know that I shouldn't be holding on to? So it's just like grabbing a hot pan off a stove. That pan is hot. You know it's hot in your hand, but you just refuse to let it go. You know, at what point, you know, that pan is so hot in your hand, is burnt the skin off, you know, or is burning your hand, it's got blisters and stuff. You know, at what point are you going to let that pan go, you know, and mend your hand and heal it, so that way you can continue to going forward? And that's where I'm currently at right now, is just coming to terms with how long am I going to continue holding this hot pan before stepping into the authentic version of myself. So it definitely was an experience. It's something that I know I'll get through, and I'll continue talking about it as I have these revelations and stuff and moving through things. So, but the biggest thing I would say for you guys, or you who's watching this, is just like I had that experience with that elderly gentleman, dropping those seeds that didn't really make sense in the moment, only to make total sense in hindsight, once you sit and think about it, what things, what messengers have been sent in cross paths with you that you've interacted with that have dropped similar seeds in your life, trying to get you, trying to gently redirect you in a direction aligned with your highest purpose, your highest timeline. And I would just say, just sit with that, journal with it and figure out what those instances are. And if you haven't had those instances, then may this serve as a reminder to be mindful as you're out in public, as you cross paths with people, and they say things to you that is intended to get you to think about your life, think about the direction that you're headed in, especially if it's opposed to the direction that in your heart you feel like you should be heading into. Because I know it can be scary, but when you've got God, the universe, your ancestors behind you, then what can stop you going forward? So the way I have this camera set up is going to be backwards, but the very first thing that I came across that I got from my home that really spoke to me is this sign right here. Because people in my entire life, I feel like, have been underestimating me. And this says, underestimate me, that'll be fun. Because what happens when people underestimate you and then you get to show them who you truly are, and that the version the version that they created in their head is nowhere near the version that you truly are. And that's what I've recognized, is that I've allowed people to underestimate me, but I've always persevered through and shown them that the version that they've had in their mind of me is nowhere near the version of who I truly am. So, just like I started about taking a bribe, how am I, Brandon, currently underestimating myself? How are you, the viewer, currently underestimating yourself? What things are coming into your path that's helping you see your true value that you have? Something to think about, right? Well, I'll go ahead and end it there, family. Just know that I love you. I love you. I love you so much. If I can get through this, crying all left and right, that's one of the things I do joke about my ex and stuff, is that, because I'm going through this emotional purging and whatnot, different things can happen, and I'll find myself just, kind of crying and stuff, not boohoo crying, bawling, but just dropping tears and stuff from time to time. And it's just recognizing that I'm getting more in tune with my heart and getting more in tune with my path. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's something that I would love for you to experience as well. So feel like that's it, family. So, just know that I love you. I know that it's not easy each and every day, but Spirit's there to help us and protect us and guide us. So, we just have to go through these lessons in order to recognize our true power, our true potential. It's not something that someone can just tell us, hey, you're powerful, this is what your authentic self is. It's only by going through these various scenarios, thinking about things, reflecting, going within yourself and just talking to yourself, your higher self, and realizing, okay, what am I feeling in my heart? What am I doing? What am I not doing? And just putting action behind it. So I'm here to help you out. I'm here to work with you, because just like you, I'm going through these things. I'm going to continue making these videos more intently, not allowing anybody to knock me off my path. And, at the end of the day, we'll come out better and stronger, because I know in my heart that's the intent. So just know that I love you, family. I love you. I love you so much. And I hope you have a great day, just because you're going to be mindful of those thoughts and intentions. We're only going to have thoughts and intentions of positivity, of love, and knowing that whatever comes up in our path that we didn't expect, that looks bad, we just know it's happening for us and not to us. So, going to leave you with that. Have a good day.